Hey, I'm Josh, the Green New World guy. Welcome back to part 2 of What Do You Notice? Just like the previous video, this is intended for students and teachers to watch together before they play the game. Now, in the previous video, we talked about what you noticed about the board setup. And in this video, we're going to talk about what you notice about your cards and about your dice. So before we do that, take a look at them, make sure you've read them over, maybe compared to the groups around you. And then we'll talk about what we noticed in 1 minute. I'll wait. So let's start with these nifty little guys right here. If you're North America, you've got yourself an 18-sided dice. If you're Europe, you've got the 12-sided dice. China and Asia, you've got the 10-sided dice. And if you're anywhere in the global south, that's India, Africa, and South America, you've got a 4-sided dice. Just to clarify how to roll these, when you roll them, that would be considered a 4 because the 4 is right side up and the same on all the sides. Now I can already hear some of you saying, that's realistic, makes sense, and others of you saying that that's not fair. And to both of you, I would say, yes, you're right. There's a lot of things in this game and in this world that are realistic, but not fair. But there's a reason why you've been given dice and not a big pile of Monopoly money to represent your region's wealth. And that's because the money isn't just yours to spend, it's your people's. That's democracy, for better or for worse. So at the beginning of every round, every region, every group of you students is going to get a chance to roll your dice to see how much money your people are willing to spend on the fight against climate change. Even a super rich region like North America might end up with a dice roll that doesn't really help anybody. I'm so pumped that I got a 1 on the first try. That really demonstrated the point well. Now let's take a look at the policy cards. You all have the same 4 policy cards, and these are the basic actions that you can take every turn. And you do this by choosing one of them, let's say tax, and placing it on your region's spot on the action mat, which your teacher should have somewhere at the front of the room probably. And you'll just take your card and you'll place it here. Now you will get this card back at the end of the round. Let's start with tax. Taxing is how governments make money, of course, but what they choose to tax also really matters because people will probably do or use or buy less of that thing simply because it's become more expensive due to the taxes. So what you're going to do here is you're going to choose one color of emissions token. So let's say the orange ones, the gasoline cars, transportation. And you're going to choose whether it's a high tax or a low tax, which means you're going to remove either one of them if it's a low tax or 2 of them from your region if it's a high tax. Now here's the catch, is that people don't like paying taxes. They get grouchy about it and then they are less willing to pitch in their hard-earned cash into the fight against climate change. So when you remove 1 or 2 of those tokens, you're going to have to put 1 or 2, depending on what, of these -1s, excuse me, there you are, the -1, on your action, on your spot on the action mat. So for example, if I'm playing as Asia and I choose to play tax, when it comes time for me to explain my action, I'm going to say that I am putting a tax on gasoline cars. And so I'm going to reach over, I'm going to take 2 of the gasoline cars tokens off of my region. And then I'm going to put 2 of these -1s on my spot on the action mat, showing that in future turns, I'm going to need to subtract 2 from all of my dice rolls to indicate that people have less cash to spend and are less willing to part with it as well. Now those -1s are going to stay there until you replace the emissions that you removed with green alternatives. So just to help you remember how many you need, your region has the number of each emission that are required for your people to maintain their standard of living. So if I look at Asia here, I see that transportation 3. So I'm going to need 3 total transportation tokens in order to keep my people happy. At the moment, I only have 1, which means I got to find 2 green alternatives to transportation. And how do I do that? That's with the next card. Innovate. So innovation is going to cost you $2, though you can do more if you can afford it. For example, if you roll a 7, you can innovate up to 3 different tech cards because, 2, 4, 6, remainder of 1. Now, the card says that your host, the teacher, will give you 2 tech cards to look at, and then you can choose 1 to keep, which means in the example of you rolling a 7, your teacher would give you 6 tech cards, and you would get to choose 3 to keep. Teachers, if you want this part to go faster, you totally can just hand students the number of cards that they can afford. Alternatively, if you want even more choice, you can set up a table where all of the tech cards are face up on the table, and students can go and actually just choose which one they want from the entire menu. Both of these could be perceived as realistic because scientists in different parts of the world have different degrees of academic freedom, which is a kind of interesting thing to discuss too. However you get your tech card, the important thing is that you read it aloud to the class so that everybody knows what's out there. Because even though you own this tech card, other groups can ask you to borrow them, and I strongly recommend that you let them because they might need exactly what you have, and realistically, if we're going to survive climate change, we're going to have to cooperate better than we are known for throughout history. So once you've got a tech card, whether you innovated it yourself or borrowed it from somebody else, when it's the next round, you are going to place it on the action mat as if it's your action. So 1 tech card instead of a policy card. You're going to place it there, and when it comes time to do all of the actions, the teacher will help you walk you through what you need to do. Okay, so certain tech cards are going to ask you to flip emissions tokens. So let's just see what that means exactly. If it asks me to, say, flip a power emission token, I'm going to literally flip it so that it's gray. And what that means is that this power plant or whatever is still here. It's still functioning. It still counts towards my minimum of 4 power tokens that I need on my region. However, it doesn't count towards the total emissions that we put on the emissions counter here. And that's because whatever emissions are coming from this power plant, they are being diverted somewhere other than the atmosphere, thanks to whatever technology I've employed. A lot of tech cards as well will ask you to place alternative emissions tokens. So those are the green ones. We've got green power, green transportation. This is the one that looks a little different because green transportation is more than just EVs. We also have greener concrete and greener agriculture. So if I'm asked to, say, place 2 green power tokens, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to place them underneath the yellow ones, the dirty ones, so to speak. And that's because just because I've built these technologies doesn't mean that they completely replace what's already there. The old ones, the dirty ones, are going to have to be removed later on a different round using either the tax or ban cards. But because there's alternatives underneath them, I won't experience the negative repercussions of the tax and ban cards. Now, let's talk negative repercussions because ban has a big one. Ban is the extreme Hail Mary of policy cards. I absolutely do not recommend using it until much later in the game. First, let's look at the cost. There isn't a specific cost, but it does require that your dice roll be at least 50%. So what that means is that if you have a 12-sided dice, you must roll at least a 6 or higher. And that's because banning anything is a very serious choice that a government would make. And it could result in chaos or even violence if at least some of your population isn't on board with it. Now let's look at the positive effect. Reducing emissions fast. You literally get to choose one color of emissions token and wipe it off of your region entirely. That's amazing, but it comes with a cost. And that cost is that if you completely remove something without building the necessary alternatives, it's going to have a seriously harmful effect on people's jobs, people's lives in general. And so for each token that you remove that doesn't have an alternative underneath it, using the card ban, you are going to have to downgrade your dice. Now, downgrading is not the same as the little -1s that you had in tax. Downgrading means you take your dice, you trade it into the teacher for one with less sides. So if you had a 12-sided dice, you trade it in for a 10-sided dice, etc., etc. There are 3-sided dice. If you have to downgrade from a 3-sided dice, I guess you flip a coin, call it 1 or 2. Not something that you want to do. And there are very, very few ways to upgrade your dice once it's been downgraded. Okay, last but definitely not least is resettle refugees. Like Ban, it doesn't have much of a purpose early in the game because there are no refugees at first. But as soon as that thermometer starts passing the sea level rise markers here, you're going to have refugees appearing in your refugee camp. And of course, you'll remember that if you reach a full refugee camp, that is game over. And so resettling refugees is something that you can choose to do on your turn. How much does it cost? It's a little bit complicated. The cost for each refugee token is indicated by the number of little stick people on it. So this refugee token would cost $3 to resettle, to take this and put it back in the box, indicating that these people have a safe place to live. So if you are choosing to resettle refugees and you've rolled, let's say, a 5, then you have a choice. You can resettle this one and this one, 3 plus 2. You could resettle these 3 and this one, or whatever, this one and this one, whatever. Any combination that's going to add up to 5. Now, why do some refugees cost more or less to resettle than others? Well, countries get to be choosy about who they take in and who they don't. And countries tend to choose people that are well educated, maybe have some money already, maybe are younger and healthier. And if you aren't those things, then there's a chance that you'll be last one picked, so to speak. And this is another case of realistic but not necessarily fair that crops up in this game, which is a whole nother discussion that I encourage you to have. Well, by this point, I think you've noticed everything there is to notice about Green New World, so why don't you all go ahead and get started. If you do want to see one full round played through, you can wait for that video to come out, but I think you're ready to save the world.